Welcome back everybody to another prop noise. I'm Zoe FPV and today we have a bunch of drone news to talk about. So let's get into the show. Hey, we have an intro for the show now. It's pretty cool. Thanks, Bobby Gaines. I hopefully I'm saying your name right. You created a really cool intro. I add some space background to it, and I guess that's going to be the new intro for the show going forward for a little bit. Hopefully you like it. And getting right off into the drone news, we have scammers charging for drone registrations. So there's some interesting scams out there that I consider around the drone laws and regulations, and one of them out there right now is charging $150 for the $5 registration fee. The idea is that they handle the hard and difficult process of registering your drone through the FAA's website for you. So you don't have to register through the FAA. You register through them, and then they register for you. So that's a thing that people are getting scammed on. And so the FAA has released an issue, or issued a warning saying, hey, people, you don't have to pay $150 for insurance or to get registration. It's only $5. And so that's kind of what's going on. There's been some instances where I call cram schools. Some of them that'll teach you how to fly a drone, quote unquote, and teach you what you need to know to pass the FAA's Part 107 test. And, they'll charge you like thousands of dollars to do it within a weekend. I consider some of those kind of scammy because most of the information to get your Part 107 is publicly available from the FAA's website. So yeah, it's really kind of hard to say if this is really a scam. If this is a scam, then those other school things are also, in my opinion, scams. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about this one in particular. So yeah, make sure you don't go to anything besides the FAA Drone Zone, which is faadronezone.faa.gov. This is the official website for the Part 107 and small aircraft users. So yeah, make sure you check out that website. I keep pointing the wrong way. Check out that website. It's the right one. So that's just a bit of a PSA for people out there. Yeah, and then Bobby Gaines, again, thanks for the intro. I'm going in reverse. We are going in time in reverse. Okay, moving on. So we have something kind of cool, the flexible Dragon drone. So some of you may have seen this going around the internets lately, but I've got to tell you, this is really, really cool. So it's several independent drones, dual ducted rotors, essentially, acting as one machine and moving as one. So it's allowing itself to transform in the air and move in basically dragon-like ways. I mean, I don't know how to say this. This is a thing. This is real. Like, that's so cool. Like, I just say, take a second to appreciate how cool it is that someone actually took the time and energy to design and manufacture and create this drone. And to think that this kind of technology might one day make its way to other drone use. But the idea is that it could crawl through spaces that other drones really can't get into. And the fact that it's got multiple ducted props means that it can kind of bounce into stuff a little bit without having to completely lose its balance. So that's pretty cool. Why you would actually build something like this for disaster relief, I don't know. But again, the fact that it exists is pretty cool, and the fact that, time and energy went into it is pretty cool. So, moving on, we have the Air Force Valkyrie drone, a sidekick for human-piloted planes. So, this is kind of neat and different. So, the idea is mostly pilots in general kind of apprehensive about drones, but this one is interesting. This is basically a sidekick for regular pilots in the air. So essentially, it's a wingman. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Stealth, but there's a movie that outlines what happens when a wingman ship that looks remarkably like that is weaponized and is taken over by a rogue AI. Not to say that's going to happen, but we're one step closer to Skynet. But either way, it's really cool, and it's going to be a loyal wingman for the crew. Totally can't hack it or take control of it remotely. It's not a drone. And moving on to something that is totally a drone. The XBlades drone sets Guinness World Record at 240 kilometers an hour. At first I thought it was 240 miles per hour, which I believe a tilted fixed-wing rotor aircraft could do. But this is 240, so it's closer to about 140 miles an hour, which is still fast, but it is not as fast as the drone world record. So it's pretty neat, though. Like, not saying this is not neat. This is really neat. But it is definitely, in my opinion, low-hanging fruit. And I think that record is going to be pretty easy to beat. So hopefully they don't get too comfortable sitting up on that pedestal, because, yeah, that's... I've seen fixed-wing aircraft, at least within planes, traveling at excess of 300 miles an hour. So 140 miles an hour is not that fast when you talk about fixed-wing aircraft. Wink. Okay. Talking about, kind of going off of what I talked about last week. This is a civilian-registered Reaper drone. So for a while you thought, hey, the Reapers, that's a military aircraft owned by military people. Not anymore. Now you can own one too and fly it internationally. So the MQ-9B, also known as the Reaper, is the first civilian registered remotely piloted aircraft to cross the Atlantic. This is a pretty big moment. So someone in the United States piloted this aircraft all the way to another military base in Fairford, Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire? Yeah. Some British word. And it took off from Grand Forks, North Dakota. So it traveled 3,800 miles, which was pretty impressive. I mean, most of our drones don't travel even a few miles before they give out. So this is showing basically where and this is kind of one of my points, is that in motorcycles and most other, I don't even say even automotive racing, but motorcycles at least, that was a military technology that went over into the civilian world that revolutionized, it created a culture, it created a whole new sport. I kind of think the same thing with drones. Drones are kind of a military thing that has found their way into civilian life. And now even military drones themselves, the same things that they had on the battlefield, are making their way onto civilian shores. And that's pretty interesting. So they renamed it the Sky Guardian because the Reaper was too, evil. But yeah, this is something that's pretty neat. So, a bit of the specs on the Reaper. It has a 79-foot wingspan. It's powered by a Honeywell TPE33110 turboprop engine, providing 45 kilovolts. It can carry a payload of 4,750 pounds. Think about that for a minute. It can carry 2 tons in its payload. Has a maximum airspeed of 242 miles per hour and an endurance of over 400 hours at altitudes of up to 40,000 feet. Oh my god! This thing can fly forever. Yeah, so now I kind of want to build a Reaper drone. I just don't have the space for it. Okay, moving on. So, in kind of other big news, Google is now splitting off its Project Wing and Project Balloon companies into their own separate companies that will be kind of standing on their own legs. So no longer are they moonshots. They are on the moon. These are two of their little precious babies that got out of the cradle and have actually grown up to be little children. And now they get to have this fun, exciting part of where they get to try to be economically viable as they sell their services to the world. So, and this is really interesting because it comes off the back when Facebook has announced they're basically divesting from their drone projects. And they're shutting down basically what they were working on. So it kind of leaves open Google's companies, now alphabet companies, to kind of take hold of the market potentially and deliver these projects to the world without really heavy competition. So the biggest thing they're going to have difficulty with is basically proving that they're economically viable and there's a reason for them to exist and for a reason for people to pay them money, right? So now they've proven that the technology exists and that it works. Now they have to prove that it is economically viable. So it's a whole nother struggle that they're going to go into. And my hat is off to those guys and gals at those alphabet companies for doing what they're doing. And moving on to more drone news, we have Marin Sheriff's Office to launch drone program. So this is kind of interesting. Marin Sheriff, I believe this is here in the Californias. It was updated 45 seconds ago. This is a very hot topic issue. They have started to institute a new drone program without telling the public. So this is kind of a big deal, is that this was only found out after an investigative reporter got underneath, basically asked a freedom of information request or whatever. Not whatever, that's the wrong term for it. But essentially, they had to dig around to find out that the Sheriff's County was instituting a new drones program. And of course, people are worried about their rights. I mean, it's one thing in my mind for a civilian to be using a drone, but it's another thing for law enforcement. And there's potential right ways for law enforcement to use drones for search and rescue and for risky situations where they need to get like an eye in the sky. Say there's like a gunfight or something, and the perpetrator is in the backyard, and they need to be able to see what's going on in the backyard. I really believe there's valid use for police to have a drone in their arsenal, especially since these are defensive tools. These aren't guns. They're not going to shoot you. If anything, they will more accurately identify that you do or do not have a gun, so they won't shoot you. So I'm kind of for this, but there is definitely a line. That line is where you start to automate these systems to police the world around you, or essentially have robot overlords. And that's scary. So this might be the very beginning tipping toe points where we have our police robotic overlords. And hopefully 10 years from now, we don't look back on this video and be like, Zoe pointed it out! And I honestly think it's not going to get to that point. There's so much pushback from the regular folks in the world that don't want drones over their heads. Just alone, they just don't want drones around them. So I highly doubt they're going to want drones that have, law enforcement attached to them. But yeah, there's already some ways that military and civilian drones have been used in California, at least for border patrols, and that kind of use might be increasing more in the civilian world. So, moving on. If you want to read more about this subject, link is in the description. I'm on the ball today. All the information is already there. You've got a lot of news to cover. A Nude Proposed Law would turn drone journalism into a swarm of lawsuits and make it easy to sue over news photography. So last week we were talking about a commission that was basically stating about anti-drone laws and weaponry, essentially, to take drones out from sensitive sites and identify them and all that good stuff. Well, this is a little bit different. This is a whole different bag of worms, unfortunately. We have multiple bag of worms to deal with in the United States when it comes to drone laws right now. So this new proposed law is proposed by the ULA, which is a commission for states' rights. And they're stating that you don't have the rights to fly over someone's property under 200 feet, saying that they own that airspace, essentially, which is a really big declaration because the FAA currently owns the airspace from 0 to infinity above your house. So as soon as you leave the ground, you're in FAA's territory. And then you hit the ground and you're back at home. So this is kind of a big pushback from the states. And the states saying, no, we have the rights to legislate and say that these drones are within our territory and that under 200 feet belongs to us. So this is big. The FAA and other representatives, I think, are going to have pushback on this because the FAA isn't going to want to give up their rights to police the airspace. And at the same time, states want the rights to police the airspace for drones on a case-by-case basis, and this kind of allows them to do that. But essentially, if you're flying over someone's property and you get any bit of their property in view, they can sue you for invasion of privacy and trespassing. And that is what the ULA is trying to do right now. Yeah, so the Uniform Law Commission and states will have control the lower 200 feet of airspace, and property owners will have rights and could create chilling effects on the media's use of drones. So essentially, aerial photographers that are taking photos of houses or doing any kind of real estate work, they would be hindered severely. Pretty much anything relating to flying drones in any kind of real way. This would also hinder Amazon and Google's and others' efforts to have drones deliver into your airspace. So there's going to be some pushback on this, and I really don't see the ULC getting very far in what they're doing. That being said, there's a really long article in the links in the description. You should go check that out. Also in the description is a link to the tort laws relating to drones committees. So there's actually, I have the list of every member of that committee here. They are public representatives of that committee. You can go to this page and check out everything that they're talking about and everything that they're doing and all that good stuff. So if you want to get up on law and you want to get up on what's going on with drones and get your voice heard, this is how you do it. And in that same tonality and note, the Drone Advisory Committee. So last week we had a small bit of a committee that was put together for anti-UAS technologies, which is essentially talking about what kind of technologies could be used to counter drones. This committee is basically what the FAA refers to when it's talking about new laws and regulations upcoming for drones. And it's quite big. And this committee has really nobody from the actual estimated 700,000 registered operators in the airspace. This is represented by the corporate side of drones. This is represented by the legal side of drones. There's really not, besides Rich Hansen, which I love Rich, but he is not a drone enthusiast. He is not one of, I wouldn't say he's one of us in the sense that he's pushing for the right stuff, but there's only one of him. And that's it. And then you have Brian Wayne, who I've never heard of before, but he's the President and CEO of the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. Seriously, what the shit is that? I've never heard of that in my life. In my life. I've never once overheard anyone talking about, hey Zoe, have you heard about the International Association? The Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. The AUVSI. Oh yeah, I've heard of the AUVSI. What the hell? I'm an idiot. I just haven't heard of Brian Wayne. Or Ween. Anyways. Really, I can't believe I didn't put the acronym together. I have heard of them. They are definitely I wouldn't say they're one of us either. They are on the corporate end of the spectrum. So we really don't have any representation for the Drone Advisory Committee, which is a damn dirty shame. Yeah. So let's have a bit of a unicorn chaser, yeah? I brought you down a little bit with those stories, I think. So I know I'm definitely feeling down from those stories. So let's talk about something a little more positive and something that actually brought a genuine smile to my face. Intel has done it again. They've done a 1,500 drone light show using their new system and have shown off some spectacular imagery that really makes you realize that drones might be the proper light show of the future. And that's really cool. 1,500 drones though. This is an interesting fact. Intel is the second largest registered user of drones in the National Airspace System. And this is listed by manufacturer. So it's not just DJI. DJI is at the top, but the next biggest manufacturer of registered drones in the airspace is Intel. They have so many of these things registered that you really don't know. You really don't know how many of these things are out there. There's a lot of them. It's pretty crazy to think that there's Intel and then there's like GoPro and all the rest of them. If you combine the rest of that drone industry together, they're about as big as Intel. And then you have DJI, right? So yeah, Intel's done it again with the 1,500 drone light show. And this was, I believe, here in California. I missed it. It was at Folsom, and it was spectacular. Yeah, and again, thank you, Bobby Gaines from the Show Me Animation Studio for my intro. I love it. It's actually pretty cool. It has a drone going inverted through the first part of it, a little tiny whoop. No X-Class quad yet, but hey, you know what? It is one of the cooler things that I've seen lately. And the fact that a fan made it for me is all the better. So thank you for being awesome. And on that note, I've been Zoe FPV. You've been watching Prop Noise. Hopefully you've gained a little bit of knowledge from this episode. You saw some cool stuff. You enjoyed yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, all those good things that you do, because that helps this video go into the world and get ranked up in the YouTubes. And it lets me know what you want to see. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and until next week, I've been Zoe FPV.